is in captivity. The Replayables is at peace. We are here and we are doing Super Metroid today. Welcome back, everybody, to the Replayables, YouTube, Spotify, Apple Podcasts. I'm Alex. I forgot to introduce myself last time. Alex, aka Retropolitan Gamer, aka your favorite streamer's favorite streamer. And the first person I'm going to introduce, he puts the star in Brinstar. It's Tony. Welcome back to the Replayables podcast.
Awesome to be here. Lovely game. Cannot wait to talk about this game.
I can't tell if you like it or not with all your swag in the back.
I don't understand how I would love this game so much.
Oh my God.
Casually showing the tattoo.
Yeah, no, the sleeve will come up at some point. We gotta, it'll come in organically.
It's so organically.
Yes, last on the dais, when it comes to justice, he puts the fair in Norfair. It is George. Welcome back, buddy.
Do put the fair in Norfair.
You do. This is really exciting because this is 2, maybe 3, we'll find out. But I know for me and Tony, just to set the stage about how much we're going to gush, this is one of our favorite games of all time. And it is so fun to get back into this. Tony, set the stage for Super Metroid. When do you play it? How do you hear about it? And what's your relationship been with it as you've aged?
So as I said before, I got the N64 before I got a Super Nintendo. So my Super Nintendo came in late for me. Like I was probably early high school, maybe late junior high. And I was like, I'm going to go out and buy a Super Nintendo. I have some money. And I went out and bought like Metroid because I was like, oh, there's a Super Metroid because I love the original Metroid. Absolutely loved it. And I was such a huge fan of that. And then I love Zelda. So I grabbed those 2 games and I brought them back home and I started playing Zelda right away, of course. And then eventually I got around to playing Super Metroid. And it was like, I'd never experienced a Metroid game this amazing before compared to the first game. I was like, this is light years ahead of it. It's not just a graphical increase. Everything is better. Every single aspect was improved. And it was mind-blowing because I didn't really know much about it. I'd come in so late, I didn't hear about other than like, oh yeah, there's a Super Metroid for Super Nintendo. That's the only thing I really knew about it. So I was coming in blind, extremely late to the system.
Got it. I'll go next. I got Super Metroid within the first year it came out. I'm pretty sure within a couple of months. And I had played Metroid 1 at a friend's house and family's house. I had never beaten it. I owned Metroid 2 for the Game Boy, and I could never beat it. I just couldn't figure it out. I was really, really young at the time, so I was a little intimidated by Super Metroid. So as has been a running theme in this podcast, I rented it. And I rented it, and I played the first like 2 hours of it, and I loved it, and I immediately went out and bought it. So it took me, I was a little reticent just because I had not been able to conquer a Metroid before that. So I had to dip my toe in the water. But once we played it for a little bit, we were in. George, my man, Super Metroid, where were you when you first played it? And what is your relationship to it now?
I might be the polar opposite. So I passed the Metroid series by altogether. Played Metroid Prime as my first game, which I loved. Played Prime 2. And then the Wii came along and had the Wii Classics. And I think the only one I actually bought was Super Metroid. No, I didn't buy it. My roommate, Randy, bought it.
Mm-hmm.
And I gave it a whirl, but I had to use the classic controller for the Wii, which is a god-awful piece of hardware. It hurts to use, didn't like it at all. So I actually digitally shelved the game. And I didn't play through it for the first time until I had the Switch and had the Switch Online.
Wow. So it was on your backlog for 20 some odd years.
Yeah, almost 30 years, I think.
Tony, your relationship to Metroid before this game, you said you were a fan of it. Had you played both games and beaten both games? Did you own both for the Game Boy and the Nintendo, or were you just Famicom?
Oh, I just had the NES version. I never played or had the one for the Game Boy. I played the replay of that later when it came out, or the remake, but I never played the original of the Samus 2. So I had played the original Metroid so much. I had books and books of just passwords scribbled down. I can remember playing it in the morning before going to school and just running around and be like, okay, I have to get myself killed so my password will come up, so at least I can write that down before I go, because I just got 3 missile things and I can't lose them if I have to turn it off. So I remember playing this game a ton as a kid and having like all those sheets and like maps that I hand drew and everything, to being like, okay, there's a missile in this room. And there was like some like very poorly photocopied book from like a Game Informer somewhere that my dad had a friend of his had this book and he scanned it at work and the high quality 80s scanners that they had back then. So it was this very black painting with picture with like little bits of dots and things like, okay, I think that's a missile there. And I think that's Samus jumping in there. Okay. So, and I draw all over these maps as best I could. So I was like obsessed with the franchise from the original. And I never ended up playing the handheld Samus 2, which I guess it was another one of those things where I just didn't hear about it because I didn't have the internet. So I didn't learn about these things and I didn't really have any kind of like feeding information, gaming information coming in like that. And I didn't really have a Game Boy until again later in the Game Boy Pocket era. So it was like kind of one of those things where I didn't have access to it and didn't know about it. But I played the heck out of the original one, which is why I probably fell in love with the Super Metroid as well.
Yeah, I played the heck out of Super Metroid and Metroid 2, I put a lot of time in. Metroid 1, I was very sparsely playing it. I actually I rebeat Zero. I've beaten Zero Mission twice, which from everything that I've heard from people does a good job of recreating the original. I went back last night on the Nintendo Switch Online where you could like pick the special and you could jump to
Hmm.
the end of the game. So I went to the end of the game and I beat Metroid last night. And the one thing I want to talk about is it's crazy how much the foundation was built in the first Metroid. I know you've only got 6 energy tanks and missiles. You don't have power bombs. You don't have super missiles. But like the foundation was there and they kept building on it. And then Super Metroid is the peak of it, right? Tony, did you feel that? And also, when you were playing the original Metroid, was it incredibly difficult for you like it was for me? Or did you just kind of vibe with it and like the guides helped?
Again, I didn't have a ton of guides, but I did just do a lot of password saving and like constant playing. And like my dad would play with me, so he would help me through tougher parts. But like I'd watch him play it, and then I'd learn, and then I'd play it. And so many times that we would just keep playing through it and keep playing through it. It was like the kids just have so much time, so it was constantly like always on your mind, trying to think of how to beat things and beat guys. Can't beat it, can't beat it. I'll go back and find some more items, get some more missiles, something, and just getting used to again trying to get those little tiny hands on those little controllers and the getting used to the slowdowns and eventually beating it. Then, of course, there's always the Justin Bailey cheat to get around playing the game the hard way and just finishing it in 30 minutes. So there was always those passwords that would get you through.
Yeah. George, what was it like going backwards for you? You know, you hop into and it's not that you go backwards, but you play the game in an entire different genre, right? Like you play it as a first person shooter. It still has the vibes of a Metroid. But what was it like going back after you had played two first person perspective games?
So Super Metroid was the first 2D Metroid or Castlevania for that matter that I played. Any of the Metroidvania games.
Tony's eyes.
Yeah,
He's so
right.
judging you right now.
But I knew about the reputation of the game. Like it's hard not to know about how good Super Metroid is. So I went into it with a really high bar, and sometimes you get a great recommendation and you just can't meet those expectations. But Super Metroid did, so I thoroughly enjoyed it. It's convinced me that I do want to play the others. Like I'd love to play Zero Mission. Definitely am going to play
Fusion?
Fusion.
Fusion.
Oh, Fusion's beautiful.
Right,
Fusion's
like and
amazing.
I'll play Dread eventually. I'm going to
Oh
get
my
to them
God.
all in my own time.
You know, better late than never.
Yeah.
I before we get into what's aged the best and what's aged the worst, I want to set the stage for Metroid as a series. Metroid 1 comes out 86. We don't get another Metroid for 5 years for Return of Samus, another 3 years for Super Metroid, and then Metroid goes away for 8 years. For 8 years we do not get anything after Super Metroid, and then in 2002, Metroid Fusion and Prime come out the same year. Although Metroid Prime is not made by Nintendo, it's made by Retro Studios. What do you make of that timeline, and what do you make of the sparseness of Metroid compared to Mario and Zelda, where we are constantly getting updated games?
Yeah, that was like a huge dry spell. And you're sitting there, I was like, oh, we're getting one every system, it seems like. So you got one NES, we got one. We got one for the Game Boy. We got one for the Super Nintendo. All right, the 64 is out. We got our Mario game. We've got our Zelda game. We got a second Zelda game. Metroid game's got to be coming any day now. And it's like, well, where is it? when's it coming out? And then all of a sudden they're like, oh, here's our new GameCube. It's like, oh, I guess there's no Metroid game for the N64. We're not getting that new cool Metroid. And then there was always like the rumors of it coming out. Like there's the commercials of showing like a Metroid, 3D Metroid. And like, nah, that's not happening for the N64. It's just not going to do it. And then, like you said, boom, now we got two all at once on the new systems. Like I think it was within like months of each other they came out. And it was like, you had the option of a 2D and a 3D, and it was like, well, if Metroid isn't a 3D game, there's no way that's going to be that big a deal. We stick to the Super Metroid games. The 2D is where it's at. It's the Metroid series, and that's the way we should do it. And Prime Games did a great job, in my opinion, of bringing Samus into the 3D world. But then at the same time, they also gave you Fusion. So if you were like George and you wanted to try a 3D game, you're good. But if you wanted to stick to your traditional guns, you've got your Fusion game at the same time. It was wild to have two of the same franchise come out within months of each other, almost competing with each other.
Well, there's 3 games over 16 years, and then from 2002 to 2010, there's 9 games in 8 years. So
Yeah.
with these kind of clusters where Metroid games come out, George, what was your perspective on like Metroid, not as an outsider, but as someone who hasn't dabbled in the entire catalog like Tony and I have?
Well, I think you can give a lot of credit to Nintendo here. They treat this series with a lot of reverence, I think. I would guess that's why you didn't see a Metroid game for such a long time. You know, they probably couldn't make it work the way they wanted to for the Nintendo 64. I don't think, I don't know how well Metroid 2 was received. Like, obviously, the remake, I think, completely makes that game better. But maybe they realized Game Boy wasn't the way to go either. So they had to wait for the hardware to catch up to their ambition. I don't think making that kind of game is easy, especially with all the little nooks and crannies you have. You want the right amount of backtracking without making it seem too onerous, like Metroid Prime 2, So to me, the Metroid series was something where, oh, as someone who's only played a few of them, that I could pick up any, and it's going to be a great time.
It's also surprising to me that there's 10 original Metroid games, not counting remakes or remasters, and only 4 of them have been made by R&D1. Only 4 of them have been made by Nintendo. There's a lot of like weird ones in there. There's like Metroid Prime Pinball, Metroid Prime Hunters, Other M by Team Ninja. But the mainstays, the main Metroid games, to be as good as they are on Game Boy Advance, right? Those 2 Game Boy Advance games kick so much ass that I would agree with you, George. I think part of the delay was realizing how perfect Super Metroid was. And I don't think they knew what direction they wanted to go with the series. And then you end up going 2 separate routes, which is the home console goes first person with Retro Studios, and then they go back to the Game Boy Advance and go back to a more basic 2D for 2 of the best games in the series. I think it would be a really good time to talk about Metroid in the world of Nintendo compared to their bigger series. So I hope I'm pronouncing her name correct, but Keza McDonald. She wrote a book called Super Nintendo, came out a couple of months ago. It's a fantastic read. And I want to just paraphrase a paragraph of hers to set the stage for. She says, Metroid is the loneliest Nintendo series. Most of the places she explores are long dead, with only aggressive space creatures and relics of civilization left behind. This breeds an atmosphere of apprehension, vulnerability, and isolation. None of this sounds much like a Nintendo game, and indeed, Metroid is an outlier in the company's canon, a far cry from the straightforward joyfulness of Mario or the childlike curiosity of Zelda. Its science fiction sensibilities are more alien than Asimov, more fear than optimism. I feel like that encapsulates exactly the vibe that I feel with Metroid. I feel like Super Metroid, the phrase "it's a vibe" was created just for that game. It's so cinematic and it's so film-like. How do you feel like it stands up as one of the big 3 series for Nintendo?
I think it definitely has its place there. There is no doubt in my mind that when you think of Nintendo, those are your big 3 like characters or people or franchises that you're going to list first. I know people may think of others or Pokemon is in there, but Pokemon technically isn't Nintendo. They're part of it. Metroid is just one of their. Like you said, it's not your exploration Zelda looking around and like a kid going around fighting for the world, and it's not Mario jumping around having fun platforming. It's a mix of both, It gives you that exploration and that world building that you get from Zelda, but also the platforming and the tight controls of Mario. So that it can at times be amazing and at times be punishing, and it's controller snapping at one time and then absolutely awesome when you're jumping around, flipping off walls, shooting guys, shooting missiles, and landing perfect shots and just not getting out. Or when you're hearing that beeping noise and it's just like, oh my God, if I take one more hit, I'm gonna die. I am absolutely I gotta focus up and I gotta tight controls, not miss a single thing here. It was one of those kind of franchises that just cemented itself. And yes, I would say it built a third leg of like what holds up Nintendo in the 80s and 90s.
Where do you feel like it stands against the other two series? And what was it like playing Prime for the first time and feeling that very dark sensibility on a Nintendo console from a first party franchise?
It's definitely the most adult of those big three, right? You know, I don't think there's any truly dark Mario games. Like, I just played through Luigi's Mansion with my kids and like, you know, okay.
That's not a
um,
Mario game. That's a Luigi game.
yeah, that's a good point.
Yeah.
The Zelda games at times can be more adult in tone, but at its core, it's still like you said, it's like it's exploration. It's still there's still lightheartedness within even the more serious Zelda entries. Metroid, and I'm going to take other M and just pretend it doesn't exist, right?
Yeah.
Metroid has always been about, you're right, Samus navigating some barren, landscape. There's in almost every game, there's like corpses in the background. They find a way to tell a story without cutscenes, particularly in Super Metroid. Things start to happen, and you can connect those dots to yourself and go, wow, okay, she's really on her own. And then when something pops out like a baby Metroid to help you, you're like, oh my God, someone's here to help me. And it's such a big deal. It's one of the things probably Metroid Prime 3 got wrong, where they had all these other hunters and they would like show up from time to time. And you're like, I don't know, man. What are you doing on my screen? Get out of here.
Yeah, I think you're right, George, in that like that darkness and like it just like the beginning of Super Metroid, you get like the game starts and it's like they come in with the cinematic, the text. You hear Samus's voice saying like the last Metroid's in captivity, or else you hear this music and it starts getting like amping up, and you're seeing some cutscenes. You're seeing scenes from old games too. They show in like Metroid 1 beating Mother Brain. They show Metroid 2 capturing it. And they're like, okay, now okay, this is what happens. So suddenly Samus is handing this over to scientists. And it's like, and then the music is like builds to a crescendo and shows like Super Metroid. But then as you start the game, you start to see like something's wrong with this facility, and like they're starting cinematic scenes, which is like unheard of for the time, to have like a cutscene to start the game to explain the story. Normally it's like you start a game and it's like press start, boom, here's you're going, you're running, there's your guy, start moving. Or like Zelda, they wake you up in the middle of a room. Mario, here's your world 1, zone 1, start running, like just get going. And even in the Metroid 1, they just beam you in, play the music, and you start playing. You don't even know what to do yet or which direction to go.
Same with two. Same with
Yeah.
two.
So this is the first time they're like, here's some backstory and here's what's going on. And you see all this science facility with a bunch of dead bodies lying around. And it's like, holy crap, this is not some kid's game anymore. This is like an adult game.
It felt like such a change from obviously, I was a huge NES kid and played every Mario, every Zelda. I played Super Metroid before I had a Genesis. So I had just been incubated in this Nintendo happy world where skies are blue and clouds are smiling. And then for Super Metroid, especially for me to have that kind of adult vibe, it was probably the first time I was ever legitimately scared in a video game. This was the first time that a game was instilling, like the author said, that fear of isolation and vulnerability. It felt so groundbreaking for Nintendo. And it also felt like for the first time, it can stand up to the Genesis with adult games. The adult nature of some of the games that Nintendo needed to bring to the forefront during the console wars. I couldn't believe the tension that they built in the beginning of the game.
I
That's
think
the
it's
first
adult too in
minute.
its difficulty, right? You know, Mario games can be difficult. Zelda games can be difficult in their own way, but none of them make you want to shake your controller and go, I'm just not good enough yet, like a Metroid game can. Or finding those little hidden bits or trying a sequence break. Those are like really advanced gaming concepts that you don't get as much, at least not at Super Nintendo level with the other franchises.
Yeah, you definitely can't do Mario levels out of order that much in Super Mario World at the time. And Legend of Zelda was the Link to the Past was almost like super linear if you think about the order. You can maybe do one or two dungeons out of order, but you can't do the whole thing out of order. Super Metroid, you're like, well, I'm going to skip those two bosses, or I'm not going to go into this world until the very end. I'm going to jump to the last item that I need and get the space jump early instead of getting it near the end of the game so I can traverse things. It was actually something I used to do on the Metroid game original, and I learned where these things were. I was like, oh, I could go trick and get to the high jump early because I want that first so I can get the Varia suit so I don't have to wait till later on in the game to get it. I can get it early. So I'd run and then I found, oh, I can get the screw attack way earlier. Instead of getting it like 30th on the list, I can get it like 4th or 5th. If I'm careful and I learn how to beat the game in out of order, it was like you could figure out your own path. So it wasn't as linear as well. So it was again that like a kid could play through it normally, but an adult could play through it in more advanced levels and more complex ways. So it gave more depth to a game that was just very straightforward and ultimately a shorter game
I think
than
too,
both the other two.
I think the pacing and some of the design choices even create that feeling of apprehension even more. You watch the cutscenes in the beginning, and then you never lose control of Samus again for the entire game until the mother brain picks you up in that beam and you cannot
Yeah,
control her anymore. And that feels so severe because they made it where you are not ever losing control of that character until the
pushing
very
so many
end.
buttons.
And it gives you a feeling of hopelessness, which makes the appearance of the Metroid even more cinematic and
Mhm.
emotional.
I must have smashed the button so hard on my keyboard or my mouse, or not my mouse, my controller when I was a kid playing that. I'm like, oh, I can get up, I can get up, I can get up. And then the first time you do it, if you have enough health, you get up and you can keep fighting. Then it happens again. You're like, oh my God, I gotta get up, I gotta get up, I gotta get up. She's gonna kill me, she's gonna kill me. Oh my God. And then that like you said, that jump in at the last second, that feeling of helplessness, you just you're in full panic. Like I'm at the end boss. I'm at the very last second. And I got hit with a stupid beam and I couldn't get out of it. And now how am I supposed to get away from this? And all of a sudden the whole game changes in that one moment.
Part of what made me more capable of conquering Super Metroid was that I feel like Nintendo took the platforming from Mario, then took the part of A Legend of Zelda, which was the collections, the puzzles, the way you need to remember where something is. You need to mentally mark something down and say, I can't get in that door, or I don't have access to that, or I don't have the right item, but eventually I'm going to come back to that. And I feel like Metroid was the amalgam of both, which was so great because I was used to the platforming from Mario and I was used to using my brain from Legend of Zelda. And I think A Link to the Past comes out 2 years before Super Metroid, maybe 1 year, but it had just slowly taught me to think of games more expansively. Also, it was the first time that I ever felt a living, breathing world. So think about in Super Metroid, the first time you go all the way right and you find those 4 statues, and it's the 4 bosses, and you have no idea what that is, but you know that eventually it's going to make sense. So I think A Link to the Past and then Super Metroid was the first time that I ever felt a truly interconnected world where everything wasn't just like Mario level, level, level. I don't know if you guys feel the same way about like that interconnected world.
I love that like interconnected world, like you said, and I think that what was interesting about that, what you find this place with the 4 bosses there, and you're like, huh, that one kind of looks like that guy I just fought. That looks like Ridley on the front base or the first like intro world. That's interesting. And then there's these other guys, and it's like, oh, those kind of look familiar. And if you'd played the original Metroid, they did something similar to that, where it was like, you can't get over here until you beat these bosses, and then we build a bridge. And now it's like, I bet I'm gonna have to come back here at some point. I bet I'm gonna eventually find my way around to this room again toward the end of the game. And I'll have to remember that. But you had the map, so you could at least see that and say, like, oh, you know what? I'm gonna make a mental note that I want to go back to this spot sometime. And then maybe you beat a boss or two and you come back and things change and eyes light up. And you're like, oh my God, the room is different. I know what I gotta do. I gotta find more of these guys and kill them so I can get into the bottom and find out what's down there. And the fact that you had your world isn't just a linear path or one giant open world. It's like, here's a world and you could take it to the left and find your way down to what is down there. Norfair, I think, is in the bottom left. But they end up linking back around, and you end up at one point beating a few areas, and then you come back into the starting area from a different direction, and you feel totally more powerful in this area. It's like, oh, I remember struggling to get through this area before. I was always dying and looking for health and being extra careful. Now I'm just running and gunning, blasting people because I've come back and I'm a much stronger, more powerful Samus.
I mean, you literally
And
can run through
yeah,
things,
it's
which is I think it's the most fun ability in the game because you just barrel through anything you want.
It definitely takes the cake until you get the combo of the screw attack and space jump.
Yeah,
yeah,
It's also funny. I want to bring something up. So on the Tony Hawk podcast, Randy made a really good point about whenever you start a new Tony Hawk character and you feel like such a goober, you could barely ollie 3 inches off the ground. Playing Zero Mission and then immediately going into Super Metroid last night, I played for like an hour and a half and got to Meridia. And like coming off Zero Mission, where at the very end I've got my screw attack, my suit, everything. I feel like such a goober when I start a Metroid game because you're so weak. You can't open a damn door. You
yep.
can't bomb the floor.
I
You're
mean,
just like
you don't even have
politely
ball
asking
yet.
the game, like, can I get one doorway, please?
I mean, George got that experience the first time he played a Metroid game because I think the opening of Prime, they're like, "Look how powerful you are!" Boop, we just
yeah.
took it all away, and so it's like they give you the great stuff you had from Super Metroid, and then cripple goober you right away.
It was really, really amazing pacing. And I want to hop into what's aged the best here because I want to bring up my first thing that's aged the best. And this is such a specific thing. The colored hatch doors are so genius because they have it in Metroid 1 where they have the different colored doors. And they really couldn't do it in Metroid 2 because it was all black and white. So they did other things. But that feeling when you get an item that you need for one of those doors and you immediately go to your map and you're fantasizing about all the different things you can do now, all the progression you can make. Oh man, I remember where all those yellow doors are. I've got the power bomb. What's aged the best for me is the hatch doors and the map system and all the progression that comes with that.
I do remember that happening a lot and be like, "Oh, I just got this new item," and be like, "Oh crap, that's a green missile. Super missiles. What are these?" And then going, "Oh, but they're green. I bet they open those green doors. Where did I see all of those green doors?" And you can't remember. You're like, "Oh, I know there was one." You jump into a room. You're like, "Oh, there's a green door in here somewhere. I got to go looking around." And you start looking at every. Then you're pausing the map. Like, okay, there's got to be a door there. I'm going to run over there and see. Oh, that's a yellow door. Hold on, I'll run over there. No, that's a green door. That's the one. Let's open it up and see what's in there. So there's always those things, and like you said, with that circular world and that exploring stuff, you don't always know. You go into a door and you're like, huh, I can't progress any further in this room. I wonder what's over there. I guess I'm gonna have to come back later. And you have, it's not just like one or two. It happens in like half the map until you start to get to about half of your items.
Yeah, coming from Prime, which had a map, and I want to say even color coded in the map and said like, oh, this door,
Yeah, they
they'd
had
make
colored
up
doors
something,
in
need some
Prime.
combustion, whatever. Like they wouldn't explicitly say, hey, you need a super missile, but they say something. If Super Metroid didn't have that, like have a map period,
Oh
I
my
don't know if
God.
I could play it.
It would it would be very much like original Metroid, which is your hand drawing a lot of maps.
Yeah, and you know what? And when I'm a full blown adult, I don't got time for that anymore. So
Yeah.
I appreciate the map.
Yeah.
It truly is. Yeah, it makes such a difference, and it's what really elevates Super Metroid. The same with like Link to the Past. Like the map becomes so necessary, and like they're always pointing you in the right direction. George, what's something that's aged the best for you with Super Metroid?
I think this game has like has a perfect difficulty. I never hit a point where I went, oh man, I truly have no idea what to do to the degree where I need to look it up. Because again, I don't have the limited time I had when the Super Nintendo first came out, where I could say, oh, I don't really get it. I'll just play it over again because this game is fun. I want to see the rest of the game. I gotta progress. But in Super Metroid, you can figure out so much just by going through and exploring, which is the fun of it. I just got to sit down and enjoy the game. I didn't have to stress about like, man, like where do I go next to find the next boss? Like, no, you just play. You'll find it. It's okay.
You might get a little lost, but you can run around and figure stuff out, and you're bombing floors. Tony, what's something that has aged the best for you?
So part of that exploring the map and all that thing, but there was two things I was thinking of is the learning the game without a tutorial. I mean, obviously there's only so many buttons, but you have a game this complicated and they teach you things quickly and fast. You learn quickly, you learn how to explore, you learn what these things do, and you can just trial and error your way through. But it's not like you make a mistake and it's like, well, this is going to take me 10 minutes to undo my mistake. It's you just try things out and learn things, and like just like in the original Metroid, they have even that part where you go into the old portion of the original Metroid and get through that bit of a throwback, seeing the old Mother Brain world, and you're like, oh, I remember there was a ball over there, but I can't get out of here. But if I get that ball, I know I'll be able to roll out and get underneath the things. So then you get the morph ball abilities and these things. But the other thing I think that really aged the best is that in Super Metroid, they expanded so much of your arsenal that it set like the tone for many of the items you see in future series almost to the end. I think there was I think I counted out there's 3 new weapons, 5 new suit ability items, and then 5 abilities that you can do just with controllers. Like moonwalking, wall jumping, the shine spark ability. They added beam stacking, which they didn't really have in the old games. You used to have to swap beams by going and getting them again. And then they had that weird crystal flash thing. And then I think the only item that they didn't really carry on to other games was reserve tanks. But otherwise, like all of those stuff, like the speed running made it into a lot of the 2Ds. The grapple beam made it into even the 3D games. The X-ray scope was like all the visors in the 3D. Like they added all these new items, especially the super missiles and the power bombs. Those have been in the game since Super Metroid, and they've been like, when can I get them? Is what I've always thinking, because super missiles are just so powerful. It's like I just got to get me some super missiles so I can open these green doors and I can really start hammering bosses and taking care of these guys. Because fighting Chaozos in Metroid Prime is so difficult until you get the super missile, and then it's like, oh, these guys go down in 2 hits. They're just so easy. So it's that like exploration tutorial and like building your character by collecting all these cool new things that I think really cemented more and more of this like arsenal that Samus can have, as opposed to the first few games where it's like you get a couple of items, but it's mostly just jump and shoot.
Yeah, it almost sets the pace for the rest of the series. Like you could, if you played a Metroid now and it didn't have super missiles and a power bomb, something would be missing.
Yeah, it definitely has set the pace and said like you're gonna have an arsenal when you're done. You're not just gonna have the blaster. You are gonna have a full arsenal in your back pocket to fight anything.
I am going to take the easiest, what's age the best. And to be fair, this what's age the best segment, we're going to go about 6.5 hours on this because the list is just,
It just keeps going.
it just keeps going. I'm going to take sound design. It is, so I'll leave music. I'll leave music to Tony. I'm just going to do the sound design. The way it uses silences, the way that some rooms, every time you play a Mario game, there's
So
always
scary.
music playing. There's never a moment in Legend of Zelda where there isn't music playing. No matter what game, Pokemon, you never play a game where you're just sitting in silence. That's not a horror game. But sometimes, other than the sound of Samus jumping and the sound of a beam coming out, it is completely quiet. And that makes places like the ghost ship and other areas so much scarier. And I
Oh,
just
yeah.
think it's so brilliant that they do what they do with the sound design. It's my favorite part of the game.
It was phenomenal. That was really creepy the first time that kind of happened. I was like, oh, something's wrong with the game. And then I'd shoot and I'm like, wait, no, I'm making noise, but nothing else is making noise. And I'm like looking around in the game, like, and I'm like, normally I'm running through and jumping, and there's this time I'm like crawling, I'm like inching forward, like something's gonna jump out at me. Something is gonna jump out at me. Some boss or some guy's gonna pop out, because it happens a couple times too. You drop into a room and you're like, oh, this room's not too complicated. It's kind of square, and then a wall explodes and a giant monster comes out with scythes for arms, and you're like, holy crap, what the hell is this? So when I was in that ship, I was like, something is gonna jump out at me. And then all of a sudden, I think there's like little ghosts start appearing with like skulls and things. It freaked me out too. I was like, this place is eerie, and the dead silence, it's that use of negative space almost
Or
is
you just hear the
crazy.
robots walking. And
Yeah.
it's like, what the like, yeah, with the HAL 9000, exactly. Let's talk a little about the music. George, did the soundtrack when you went back, and I know Metroid Prime 1 has very good music as well. What did you think of the music when you first played Super Metroid?
It's great. I like to listen to remixes of different video game soundtracks, right? And I think Chrono Trigger might be the number one soundtrack that people touch, right? There's just so much there. Super Metroid is up there for number two, where they're very atmospheric. It's different. It's just different. It has a little bit of some cheeriness sometimes, maybe in the first couple levels where you're shooting at squirrels or whatever it is. But there's not a lot of other games out there, again, except for horror, that sets those tones, just lure you in, and then you're thinking, okay, what is going to come out of me? Something's going to happen. I only ever got that feeling from Resident Evil 1. You're walking down a hallway and you're going, something's going to happen. Then a dog jumps out the window and, you crap your pants.
Tony, talk to me about the music.
Music is so good. It's just so phenomenally well made for such a small cartridge too. I mean, I've heard stories that it is not a 16-bit game, it's a 60 or a 24-bit game because of how much extra processing they put into it. And not only is the music like just there in the background, but it's sometimes you're riding it, you're jamming to it, and you go into a new area and the music is 100% different. It's not even just a different tone or pace. Everything about the music is different. You getting down into, I can never remember the area Ridley stays in, but you get down into that area and there's these big, huge statues and lava blasts and everything, and the music is just drum beating and hammering, and it's got this like cadence of like marching and an army, and you're just like, oh, I'm really getting into a deep area. Then you get into other places that it's a little more floaty and melody, and it's like, oh, I'm kind of like exploring a cave area that's a little damp and wet area. It feels like it doesn't feel like a lair or like a monster, but it gives you this sense of exploring a deep, dank cave of isolation again. So the tone of the music is completely different for every world you're in, and it sets the pace to match with the scenery so well.
The music is so astounding. That Norfair song with the chanting, you couldn't do lyrics or human voice on the Super Nintendo on a 16-bit console, but they use some instrumentation to make it sound like people are actually chanting as you're going through. I think the moment that the game arrives for everybody, right? So obviously the theme in the beginning is phenomenal. That theme song when you're watching the cutscenes is unbelievable. But where the game just drops it on the table, you're entering Brinstar for the first time and you're going down the elevator and the Brinstar song is slowly building up and it's slowly hitting you. And then right as the elevator lands, that Brinstar song kicks in, which is my favorite Metroid song of all time.
But yeah,
And you're in this green, lush area. And that's where the game says, I'm fucking here. I've arrived. Like, this is like nothing you've ever played.
yeah, the music was just perfect for the scenes. It it just stepped everything up, and it really stood out from other NES games and Super Nintendo games at the time. Like you get your iconic Mario's and your Zeldas, but they're again they sound like they're made on a synthesizer. Not all of these songs sound like a synthesizer or like a 8-bit kind of music. It doesn't sound like someone picked out a couple of tones and said, "All right, these will play nicely in a good chord. Let's repeat them endlessly at you until you beat the game." It's like just really sells the atmosphere.
They put so much care into every detail, and the music just is a prime example of that. And which is why it's not surprising, I think it took so long to get to Prime. They took their time, realized they had to, send out something to a different design studio, and then put out another great, like put out another great 2D classic right there because they took the time with it and wanted to get it right.
I think it's my favorite soundtrack on all of Super Nintendo. I like it more than A Link to the Past. I like it more than Mario World. I think that I'll save more later for my hot take, but yeah, that's just it's incredible. George, anything else on your side that aged the best for you when you played it recently?
It just controls like a dream. I did not think that the controller got in my way ever. And you can't always say that. Like I know I was watching you play some of the old Super Mario All-Star games, and like Sometimes Metroid's a bit floaty. Sometimes springs don't work.
A lot
But
of
that
times springs don't work.
you don't get that here. If you're not perfectly wall jumping, it's really on you. It's not like it's something so difficult to master. You can do it.
I agree. I thought the controls were seamless. Wall jumping drives me a little nuts sometimes, but other than that, there's little things that like drive you nuts because you come so far with modern gaming. The fact that I have to hit select to go through missile, super missile, power bomb. But that was revolutionary at the time. You were already maximizing 6 buttons, right? In Super Metroid, the fact that you can use L and R to aim up and down. Holy cow. I was playing last night and I was able to just hand Ridley his ass or her ass right in the beginning of the game because I could just hold R and like move around. You're so right, George. The controls are just flawless.
They did a good job with that. And then adding in the angled shots too was a totally new thing for Metroid. So you never used to be able to shoot diagonally. You just had to jump and shoot at the right time. So you couldn't hide in corners and shoot up, or you couldn't angle, you couldn't jump around. But they did keep that aspect of how she jumps from the original ones. I don't know how much it was on the Game Boy, Alex. You can talk to this, but she jumps when you do a spinning jump. She's a little more wild and hard to control. When you do a vertical jump, you can control her landing and easier to control, but you can't get as much distance and stuff. So it was like that two styles of jumping was completely different than most other games because it's like, yeah, you jump and you push forward, and how much you push forward or when you push it is really how far you're going to go. And this, it's like, well, if you're jumping and you're spinning, you're going to get totally different distance, and it's harder to land on a small, tiny platform versus if you jump vertically and then tried to float your way down. So having that multiple things, it was so much to handle and so many things you could do with her that in such a small package of that controller, it was amazing.
100% agreed. I'm going to combine these into two things. What's aged the best for me is the area variety. I feel like every part feels different than the last. Brinstar feels so different than Meridia. Ghost Ship has its own vibe. Norfair feels completely different. You go into Zelda dungeons, and the dungeons have a theme, but they all feel the same, right? This was the first time where every area felt completely different. And even Brinstar has two kind of different looking areas, and it's two pieces of music for it. So you're in Brinstar, and then you progress about 15 minutes in a Brinstar, and a second song pops up. And that song fits the new aesthetic of Brinstar's second part. So I feel like the area variety combined with another part of level design and stage design is the game starts really slow, but they give you the Ridley boss fight immediately so they can give themselves more leeway to start the game even slower. It's really smart thinking because you come in and all of a sudden, like you're fighting Ridley and Ridley's holding the Metroid, and it's like amazing. And then it slows down again. And it's teaching you patience, the pace that a Metroid game is.
I would say also on your topic of the world varieties and how everything looks so different and every world is unique is you'll notice a lot of the enemies. It's in one planet, but your different zones, your different regions of this planet technically. It's like going to different continents and seeing like, well, that's a bird, but it's a different type of bird. And you get enemies that look similar and act similar, but they're different in like not just color, like what typical NES and Super Nintendo games did was I'll just recolor. The blue guy is this type and the red one is the stronger version because it was cheaper and it was easier. Just recolor it. It was like you've got your little Z bites and running around with the spiky heads, and then later on you see these ones that look kind of like crabs, but they do the same thing. They run around in a circle. Then you got the ones in I think in Norfair that look like little faces, and stuff is the guys that hang from the ceiling and drop on you. There's other ones later on that have like in the lava world, they have armor on themselves, so they're a little tougher, and it makes sense. They're in a lava world. They're not going to be as soft as the ones that are up in Brinstar. So you see similar enemies, but variations based on the atmosphere they're in. So not only do you get different world atmosphere, you get actually different like biomes at the same time. So you have totally different new enemies in different areas.
I feel like they did a good job with that for future Metroid. George, seeing the variety of levels, how impressive was it when you went into Super Metroid and you realized, because Metroid Prime, everything kind of looks the same, and that's just because the 3D engine and kind of the similar colors. What was it like going into Super Metroid and having the big, vibrant colors like the green of Brinstar and like the purple of the opening area?
Gaming's come so far since the 1990s, right? It was almost what I expected. And then I was playing it and I was going, wait a minute. I'm playing a game from the 90s. I'm not playing some indie darling that just came out. And of course, it's going to have all these details. This game's 30 years old. I just didn't believe that I was playing a game of such quality from so long ago. Because you almost get spoiled as overall the quality of gaming presumably gets better over time.
What? The visuals were the strongest. I love the colors. Another thing that's aged the best, do either of you guys remember seeing the box art when Super Metroid first came out?
Yes, I've seen the pictures of it, but I don't remember it much.
Yeah, it's
Yeah.
like Samus coming down and Ridley's behind her, and it's just so epic. But can we talk about the best box art in Metroid is Metroid 2? It's that super famous Samus down in a pose in a desert. It is so iconic. And it was
You're
crazy
right.
because so many people must have bought Metroid 2 because of the box art. Metroid 1's box art was the normal NES kind of blah.
Right, just in the hero pose.
Yeah, Metroid 2's is really cool. I don't remember Metroid Prime's box art. I think Prime's was just the Thunder logo, right?
No, I think Prime is her just sort of standing still with her arm down like she's not even shooting at something,
Yeah.
but it's, I mean, maybe that's because they took so long of a break and they're like, no, you just want to see Metroid or you just want to see Samus on the cover. That's really all you care about.
Yeah. And
But
even like
is
in
the
the Super
box art
Metroid
for
one,
the,
the Kraid has his hands coming down like
Yeah.
up the top.
I noticed that the other day when I was really looking at it, because I always see her and Ridley fighting, and that's the one that draws your attention. And then you see Super Metroid in the corner, and you're like, okay, yeah, it's Super Metroid. And that's Ridley, obviously, that you're shooting with the lasers and stuff. And then you see, noticed, I'm like, what are those claws? And then I realized, oh, that's Kraid. That's him, because he's not the little tiny guy from the first game. He's huge in this game. He's enormous.
is the box art the same as the cartridge art?
Yeah, I think so. I think it was the
Yeah,
same.
I think it's just
I
a
remember.
smaller
Okay, yeah.
version. It's very
Yeah.
rare back then to have different, I think,
Yeah,
between
because
the
I mean,
box art
I've
and the
seen the
cartridge art.
cartridge. The cartridge, that's hot fire.
I think the other thing, and then Tony, I'll pass it to you to see if you have anything else that's aged the best. For me, this is so nerdy. The dynamic lighting in the game, it was the first time ever where there's these floating little firefly type things in
Hated those
Brinstar,
things.
and you shoot them and the room turns dark. But it's not like NES games where like the room would just go black or the screen would go black. Depending on how many of those fireflies you've taken out in a room, the room is appropriately lit in corners. And it was the first time I remember being kind of like when you could light the lanterns in Legend of Zelda or the torches. Oh, this is kind of cool. Metroid took it. That's the first time I ever saw dynamic lighting in a game. You want to talk about the amount of things it sets the standard for.
Yeah, I hated bumping into those because every time I'd be jumping on the little platforms, if you bumped into them, they died. And it was like, if there was 5 in a room, it got 1/5 dimmer every time you bumped into one. And then it's like, I think there's a platform here. And you jump into space and she'd be sitting there like on a little pixel of light. And like, oh, that shiny spot is from light that has leaked its way down to this dark cave that I'm in. And those were always annoying, but it was wild. Like you go into a room, you're like, it kind of looks different in here. And then you'd shoot one of them. Oh no, I definitely don't want to do that again.
You could almost say that Super Metroid's like the last thesis paper of the Super Nintendo. It maxed everything out, explored the boundaries of what you could put on that without looking a little odd. I forgot what the tech is that they use in Star Fox and Chrono Trigger, where like,
The FX chip.
FX chip. Yeah.
yeah, without getting into that kind of thing, like this really showed everything you could do at its best.
Super Metroid pushed the hardware so far that they had to put hardware into the cartridges to make things like Donkey Kong Country. Super Metroid getting what it got, you're right, Tony. I think there might have been 24. I don't know what the memory of
Yeah, I think
the
they
cartridges
beefed it
were,
up inside the carts.
but you want to talk about maximizing a console. I don't think I've ever seen hardware put to the brink like that until Super Metroid came out.
Oh yeah.
I think also on that aspect, if you played the first Metroid, and I'm guessing it happened in Metroid 2, there was always that slowdown. 4 enemies would appear on the screen. The game would just come to a crawl. All of a sudden, pixels would
Metroid
start
1 is
disappearing.
so bad. I was playing it last night. There's 3 enemies on the screen, and it's like the cart in Mega Man X. Like, I just have
Yep.
no idea what's going on.
Yeah.
There's multiple times where like you're falling through Brinstar and it's the blue world, and then all of a sudden you'll be like, "What? Wait a minute!" And there's like yellow blocks appear because it just rendered the wrong color when you're playing on the old system. And in this one, I played through that so many times in the old NES or Super NES, and I don't remember it slowing down. I even just replayed it over the weekend, start to finish, on the Switch, and even with an emulation, you should see slowdown if there's an emulation. It didn't slow down at all. Even on the Switch Online play, it was flawless. Like I was trying to get enemies on the screen, and nothing I could do to get the game to lag down. I was like, wow, this really was coded well and done well from a hardware standpoint and like a software standpoint from how the game functions and how it runs. They really used every ounce of it without going overboard and saying like, well, we could cram a few more things in and more details, but the game will run kind of crappy in this boss fight. It's like, well, that's not really fun if you're suddenly getting slowdowns or pieces of the boss are disappearing because they can't render them on a cart. It was it was really well done. There was so much attention to detail and effort put into making a masterpiece like this.
Tony, anything on your side that's aged the best before we hop into what has aged the worst?
I really think it sticks with that all the new arsenal you have, building that powerhouse that becomes the bounty hunter Samus, and I think the Shine Spark really sets you up in for future Metroids in that exploration and going like, there's no way I'm going to be able to wall jump up there, but I could rocket myself up. And then I think even in some of the newer ones, they've taken it to another level. So you're not only getting your speed boost, but your shine spark, but like there's Dread has like shine sparking into shine sparking and like chaining them together to get into places. Cause there's been times when I'm playing that and I'm like, how am I supposed to speed up in this room? There's only 4 feet and I need to blast a hole in that. How am I ever supposed to do that? And you figure out like, oh, you can run and jump and dance. And like they took it to another level. So they set up all of these fundamental building blocks that future games and future generations could expand on. And it was like they laid the perfect foundation for or basically increasing Samus's arsenal of not only abilities but weapons as well.
For John, what's aged the best? I really think the progression and the idea of secrets and the idea of getting as powerful as you want to, meaning you can collect as many missiles as you can find, you can collect as many energy tanks, or you can just rush through the game. When you played Super Metroid, George, and other Metroids like Prime, were you a collector guy? Did you really try to get all the super missiles, power bombs, or were you like whatever I come across, I'll take?
I tried to explore as much as I could. And inevitably, I'd get to the last boss and get a percent. You beat the game and like, oh, you got 72%. You're like, whoa, 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 whoa. Like that would bother me, right? If we don't talk about things that maybe didn't age as well, and this is again me coming at the game so late, right? I'm used to getting my handheld where a game will be like, oh, this map, 82% progress. You have 17 out of 19 super missile upgrades. I was missing that because it was just irking me. I was like, I don't want to finish this game now if I'm missing like one more missile. I just need to know. I don't want you to show me. Just tell me I'm missing something so that I can like put that mind goblin away and just move on.
It's going to be hard for you, but I need you to dig deep down and find something that's aged the worst.
Refuse. Just
So
refuse.
it's
Just
perfect.
turn your connection off and walk away from your computer.
It's beautiful top to bottom. I will refuse to say anything not mean about. No, I would say that in future Metroids we've seen some of the cracks in the armor from the Super Metroid. Like George has said that finding items, and I know in future Metroids they show you a little bit on the map. They show you things like in the Super Metroid there's a dot and it's like, oh, there's an item in here. But you come back and look at it, the dot's still there. So if you're like, oh, where's that last super missile? There's a dot in this room. I'm going to go look for it. It's like, wait, did I get everything in this room or did I not? And the other thing with those is that they don't tell you everything in the room. Sometimes there won't be a dot in a room and it's a secret. You have to find it by accident or on purpose. And with that, I would say that it's like that bit of information they gave you, they could have taken it further, like they do in Fusion, with that knowing what kind of the things are clear, or being able to understand that there's a little bit more to look around in here, a little bit more to explore without hand holding you.
I think Zero Mission as well, right? Don't they have like circles instead of dots if you've
Yeah,
gotten
they
things?
added that in Fusion, I think, and then it carried on from there.
Which
And
is nice. It was really nice to be able to see when I was playing Zero Mission that there was something in a room And like you're right with Super Metroid, it was the square regardless.
Yeah. I would say some of the other things that I found irking me when I replayed it was like, again, there's no tutorial. So you're going around and you're trying to explore. They don't tell you can wall jump. Literally, the only way the game tells you can wall jump is you accidentally stumble upon the Edacoons and they
My
start
guys,
jumping off the wall, and you're like, "What the hell are they doing? I can't do that." And then you look at them, and you're like, "Oh, maybe I can do that." It's like that kind of irked me a little bit. That not knowing these abilities were in my arsenal, because when you get the item, it's like you get an item, but you had wall jump from the beginning. It never comes up once when you start the game, and it doesn't even come in like how in your if you go to the control section and change some of your buttons around, there is no like wall jump button. There is no tutorial section that says, oh, by the way, here's what Samus can do when she starts the game. Here's how you shoot things. There's not even an explanation. It's just like jump, shoot, aim up, aim down, start, cancel item. It's like, well, I guess those are the only things I can do. And
It's
even when
funny
you
because
get the
that's
run,
now like a different gameplay mechanic. You know, I played
yeah,
a game called The Outer Wilds, and you never get a new ability. They only
hmm,
teach you things you could have done from the beginning. Like
yeah,
that is the point of the game, that you could turn the game on and beat it right away. Like, and in fact, they encourage you to do so once you figured everything. I mean, actually, it's the only way to beat the game. But I agree, like that's not what they were going for. It'd be one thing if you know, hit a Chozo statue and it popped out and it said, "Hey man, have you tried jumping on a wall like that?" Like it never happens.
no. And the last thing on the wall jumping and that's aged worse is I know the controls are tight, but sometimes the timing on your space jump and your wall jump is ridiculous. The space jump drove me crazy so many times. I'd be jumping and I'd be like, I'd hit it and it wouldn't jump. And I'd try to hit it again. And now I'm falling. It's like, well, I got to wait till I hit the ground. I have to wait till I fall to the bottom and then start over. And it was like, you had to get it right at the perfect time. And I could never get the timing consistent enough that I could do it and without ever trying or out ever having to pay attention. I always had to relearn it every time I did it. It was like, it just drove me crazy. Sometimes I'm like, I'd rather just bomb jump my way up there because I can time that endlessly.
yeah. Or speed boost, hold
Yeah.
down and then shoot yourself into the air
Yeah.
once you've got the speed booster. I couldn't agree more. I think it is very ambitious for Super Metroid to have 230 missiles. So divided by 5, however many you get, 50 super missiles, 50 power bombs. But if you're going to be that ambitious with the amount of things that you can collect, you got to help me a tiny bit. And I remember losing my mind as a kid because there was a mistake in Nintendo Power and they had counted one less missile in Meridia or something. So I was 225 missiles forever. I could never figure out that last one. Pretty sure I called the Nintendo hotline. I was like, your magazine's messed up. Kind of like George trying to yell about his battery on Pokemon. And then the wall jumping, which similar to rentals has been such a common theme here. I talked about how amazing the wall jumping is in Mega Man X, how mid the wall jumping is in Mario 64. And I find Super Metroid's wall jumping to be a little hard to time, similar to what Tony mentioned with the space jump. Every once in a while, I've got the rhythm, and all of a sudden, it just doesn't work. And I'm like, that one's on you. I feel like I've got a pretty good rhythm here. Other than that, I think my only other thing that's what's aged the worst is it drives me nuts that the save points don't restore health.
Yeah.
That just seems so much more difficult than it needs to be. I know you have your separate little things that you put your gun in and it does it. Why not just combine that?
I think they did in later games because it was silly to have a room that filled you with ammo right next to a room that you saved in. It was like, just put them together. Just make it the same thing.
Yeah, I liked Zero Mission because you were like able to restore things in the save points later in the game, and it was so nice. But that's the only other thing that that's really aged the worst for me. Anything from you guys?
You got to really poke and dig to find things on this. I can't think of much else that it was like, oh man, that's just terrible.
No, even coming to it late, it's such a credit to the game itself because most of it is just spectacular and has aged incredibly well.
I want to take a question that we normally ask later, and I want to juice it up here because I want to get your guys' inputs on the Metroidvania genre. So, when we talk about the legacy of this game, clearly one of the biggest legacies is that it built the template for an entire genre. George, I want to start with you. What has been your experiences with Metroidvanias? Have you played a lot of them? Have you played Hollow Knight? And where do you see the things that Metroid built in those later games?
I actually have not played a lot of Metroidvanias. Probably Ori and the Blind Forest, I think, falls into that, right?
Heck
Yep,
yeah,
yep.
that game kicks ass.
Yeah, well, until you get to the one glitch where you lock out your progress, which I happened to do. That was frustrating. That's another cast, though. No, I think this does such a good job of not only planting those seeds for developers of, hey, man, you can hide these upgrades in cool ways. But the sequence breaking, I want to harp on again. That is the most critical part. What would make a Metroidvania the most fun is the ability to play it again and go, hey, man, I could skip that. I could skip this. Let's find out. Let's play around in this game. How can I break the game? And that is definitely by design.
I think one of the things that really carries over too is that idea of the world, the map, not giving you a lot of information early on. Metroidvania has kind of built that template where you go into a new area and all you see is the one corridor. And you're either trying to unlock the map moving through it, or you're trying to find the map upgrade point. In Hollow Knight, it's
Right.
the guy that sells you the maps that he's throwing. Tony, would you agree that this game sets the template for like an entire genre very awkwardly named Metroidvania?
Are we going to hot takes next? I need to know this because I have strong opinions about this.
Oh, yeah, take it wherever you want.
Yeah, this Metroid is the franchise. It is the genre. This Vania stuff has got to go. It's Metroid. There was 3 of them before there was ever a Castlevania even close to mimicking a Metroid game. So why are we even talking about Metroidvania anymore? It's Metroid. They are Metroid clones. It's always been that way, and that is kind of where this leads me to. Yes, that is the Metroid like style of gaming. It is that exploration. It is that world that is so crazy, so built out. That's different in every zone and every area, and that you can do it in any order you want. That it doesn't require you to follow a linear path, and that you set your own pace. You find what you want. You explore. You can look in every nook and cranny like I used to. You can spend time bombing every single floor just to make sure there's not a hidden area below you that you didn't even know about, or you can just run through the game as fast as you want, getting as minimal amount of items. I've recently found out there's outside of speedrunners, there's min percentage runs that it says like you can beat the
Oh,
game
yeah.
with this minimum amount of items that you can possibly beat it. It's like this is the absolute minimum to beat the game is like 4% of the items for certain versions. I think Super Metroid was like 11% because you need certain items to beat certain characters. But it's like, what kind of game is like that? Where it's like, how can I beat this game without getting anything? What's the minimum amount of things I need to get? So,
Sounds like
yes,
George's, what was that, the Nunzio approach in Pokemon? What
the
was that? The
Nuzlocke.
Nuzlocke.
Nunzlocke,
Yeah.
that's
Yes.
what it sounds like. Sorry,
You
Tony,
you
go ahead.
find ways to
Yeah.
breathe new life into these games, and because these games are adaptable enough, and they're such quality in the gameplay that you want to find different ways to play these games.
Yeah. It's not a very long game. I mean, I casually played it over the weekend. I think I beat it in under 4.5 hours. But that's because I knew where to go and I knew what I was doing. I'd played it before, but I got a few things out of order just to try it. And I was like, oh, I know there's something good up there. I'm going to sneak my way up into that spot early instead of coming back. It's like, I don't feel like coming back with a super missile. I'm going to get up there, or I'll just bomb jump my way up and get up into that area before I'm supposed to. But it's you extend the life of a game that typically you could beat in 4 to 5 hours, maybe on the first time 8 hours. But then it's like, I bet I can beat it better. I bet I can get that percentage up higher to more items. So yeah, it just expands the game just from that replayability on a game back in the 90s when replayability was like, okay, start over. It's like, who wanted to do that in a Super Mario or a Zelda game that you'd spent 30 hours in or 40 hours playing? It's like, do I really want to start over at 0 and play for 40 more hours to get to the end boss again? It's like, it wasn't that much fun to play the very first world of Mario. And I can go back and play it whenever I want. I don't have to restart. But this game gave you that aspect of starting over, as you put, as a goober from the beginning, a weakling, and growing yourself how you felt.
You talk about that barrier to re-entry. So sometimes we talk about the barrier to entry for games. The barrier to re-entry, we get such epic games now, such wide variety and play styles and lengths. But I feel so intimidated to ever go and restart Breath of the Wild. I feel like I will never go back and play Claire 33 again because it's so monumental and such a big task that it almost feels like when you're like, oh man, I love The Sopranos, but do I have it in me to do all 6 seasons over the course of the next 2 months? And
Hmm.
you're so right, Tony. The idea of that short length, but it being short and compact, but so full, it's something that it came to fruition again with the later Metroids. I feel like Metroid Dread is a little bit longer, but that's an easy one to re-enter. You're so right. Like as gaming evolves, we get more, but Super Metroid was like the perfect combination of length and story.
Yeah, I'm very much of the ilk of like you said with Breath of the Wild. I had to find all the things because I knew I wasn't coming back to replay this game
Every
anytime
Korok
soon.
seed. Yep.
I was like, I got to find everything I can because when I beat the game, I'm going to put it down and I may not play it for 10 years until I get that itch again. Sometimes says, oh, I got to play that game. I love that game. I want to play it again. It's like, I don't have 200 hours to put into a game to start over. I just don't. So having that game, I decided, hey, we're going to do this podcast. I'll pick it up and play it for the weekend and see how far I got. It's like I beat it in 2 nights. I played it for one night, then I played it again later on the next night, and I was able to beat it. It's like just jump back in and play and get. I wanted to see would I be able to get far enough in a weekend. It's like I beat the whole thing in Friday over 4th of July night, and then Saturday afternoon. I was like, I want to play another Metroid game now because it's just jump right in and play.
Sorry, George. One thought I had, and then I'll pass it over, is that the only reason the Vania is included is because Symphony of the Night exists. Symphony of the Night is such a masterpiece of
Hmm.
item
Hmm.
collection and
Yeah, yeah,
maps.
yeah, 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 yeah. Uh-huh.
But the Metroid part of Metroidvania should be in all capital letters. It is so much more of the Metroidvania, right?
Yeah, Castlevania doesn't even really stick to that anymore, right? You got a lot of 3D games. You know, it's all over the place.
I've only ever played 2D Castlevanias, and I've only ever played Symphony of the Night, and then the all the Game Boy Advance ones were ruled.
I heard the
Yeah,
DS ones were really good too. If you wanted to try another one, I did buy
yeah.
the Castlevania collection. I want to try those.
Is that the new one that just came out, or is
Maybe a
that an
year
older
ago.
one? Yeah, I think I do. It has like 3 in it.
No, I think it's a whole bunch, like 8 to 10 of them.
Yeah, I think
Well,
it's like
I
all the
got the one with
NES, bunch of like Super Castlevania,
okay,
maybe.
that's a different one. I got the one with 3 Castlevanias in it because I
Yeah,
figured
Super
I'd give these a
Castlevania
try.
is on my short stream list. I've never played the Super Nintendo Castlevania game, but
What?
it's on
Not
the list.
Castlevania 64?
Oh my god, wasn't that like the 3D? I think I rented that, and I was like, God, this is ass.
You can easily lock your progress in that game if you're not careful.
That is
Game breaking bug.
This is why it should only be the Metroid genre.
Well, I'm not going to argue with you.
all caps when you spell Metroid's name like MF Doom. All right, then Tony took us very naturally into George. I'm gonna need you to put on your Varia suit. We're going into Norfair. I need your hot take. What is your hot take about Super Metroid?
It should never be remade. It
I'm
is
burning here.
as close to perfect as it gets. It doesn't need new graphics. It doesn't need new items. It doesn't need revamped bosses. Let it exist how it is. I understand why they remade the original. I understand why they remade Samus 2 or Metro. I don't know why I said that. Metroid 2. I don't need a souped up Super Metroid.
I know Tony's dying a little bit inside. I am so torn with that question. I go back and forth every single day about whether we should be remaking Ocarina of Time or not. And please
Yeah.
save it for the replayables that will be recorded sometime around Tony's birthday. But I go back and forth with Ocarina of Time. I am so much more solidified that Super Metroid should never get a remaster, never get a remake. Because you can only make a worse product.
I
Super
can
Metroid is
understand a
already the
remaster.
best.
Like, I understand just adding a coat of paint. If you really want to do that, like, okay, I'm not going to buy it. Like, the people want it. But like, don't remake this game. Don't give it the Final Fantasy VII treatment. We don't need this.
Final Fantasy VII is like That's such a
Extreme
weird,
example.
remake. No, I know. I'm just saying. Tony,
What if I threw it at you that what if they did a zero mission style remake where they have a very, very similar game, but they throw a little bit at the end to you, give a little more to you, like that last mission, zero mission.
I think if you remake Super Metroid, it has to be different. Zero Mission is significantly different from
Well, yeah,
Metroid. Same stuff, but it's just everything that's good about Metroid put into Metroid 1. Super Metroid, man, that's a hard one. Like it's like remaking Link to the Past. Like
If
don't
you're
do it.
gonna make it significantly different, give it a different name.
100%.
well then
You
you're
don't
Tony
have
would be there
then you
day
make the new
1
one.
buying the Super Metroid remake.
Yeah, I mean that if they gave the Super Metroid a remake with a Dread level quality and treatment that they gave to Dread, I'd be getting that day one. That is a day one for me. I don't care if you think it's perfect. I can always go back and play the perfect one in the past if I want to. It's on the Switch. It's free right now, but this introduces people to that world just like Zero Mission and Metroid 2 replacing Return of Samus. It gives you that connection back to these old games. Like, oh, this is a new game. It's like, no, it's not. It's a remake of an old game modernized to make it more interesting and more fun on a newer console. And I think that added content is what you're going to need something. You can't just be like, well, we reskinned it. It's like, well, I'm going to play the old one. Then I'm not going to buy it if it's just a reskin. You've got to give it something, new mechanics, new end things. That would be my counter to your hot take. But
No,
that's me.
I'm gonna stay flaming hot and say you would be wrong to buy it.
Okay.
Don't encourage Nintendo to waste their resources on something like that. They should be making a new Metroid instead, which evidently they are. I didn't look at the leak.
There's rumors. There's rumors. Always internet rumors.
A German something was like, "Oh yes, we're making Metroid something," and the internet caught fire because
Yeah.
But all right, hot take. I normally come with hotter hot takes. I normally try to get you guys to disagree with me. I think that on April 18th, 1994, when this game released, sound design in video games peaked. We have never touched it again. I don't give a shit if you put music on CD. I don't care. This is the peak, the pinnacle, the apex mountain of sound design in any video game ever. I pretend like I've played every video. I'm like a certain person saying, everybody's saying peak, pinnacle, never been done better.
Disagree. I've got a few games that I would agree with that I would put above that, but
Good. Hot
you
takes
got your
hotter. Why
hot
not?
take.
Yeah,
Would you tell
I
me I'm
can't
full of
bring them
shit?
to mind, but there's games that have really set the mood in a good way and use sound through their gameplay.
Fire Temple in Ocarina of Time. Come on. The original one they had to ban because it was
This is the height of
too
sound
religious.
design. This is it. Perfect. It's a
It
vibe.
was
It's
oh,
film-like. It has cinematic qualities. It uses the sound to set very specific environments and feelings. It's the best.
Yeah,
I'll
it
give it
definitely
that, but
was.
it's not the ultimate.
It set the bar at its highest point in 1994, with no doubt.
Yeah. That I will give you that. I will give you the 94, but 98 we get some new games that set the bar again.
Such a mark for Ocarina of Time. We're going to start wrapping up here soon, but we could talk like all day about Super Metroid. I'll start with you, George. How do you feel like Metroid is aged? How do you feel from Super Metroid out? Where do you think the franchise stands today?
I think Super Metroid is your primary argument for why Metroid is a 2D series. And I love the Prime games. I think that's how I started. I think one is fantastic, and I like 2 and 3. I can't speak to 4, but Metroid to me as a series is at its best when it's it could be stylistically have some 3D elements like Dread does, but the 2D gameplay is where it's at.
So you're right. That is the core. That is the bedrock of Metroid, and they capture some of that bits of it in the 3D world, but they don't have it as it's not the foundation. They're taking the elements and they're bringing it to a new realm, but you're right. It is the bedrock of what is Metroid.
Yeah, it's a different kind of exploration in the 3D, and it's still amazing. But man, when you think about this series at its core, 2D.
The 2D exploration is really so strong. The 3D games, I don't think they have as much exploration as you do in the 2D.
I think it's more like the scan visor and setting an atmosphere, right?
Yeah, your atmosphere is very strong in their 3D games. It's all about the atmosphere and the vibe of what area you're in, but it's not so much. It's a little more linear in those ones, as opposed to like the 2D ones where it's like, you come down into a main corridor and just goes in every direction. Pick one. You fall to the bottom of the corridor and there's two doors on either side. You're like, I don't even know which way is the right way to go because last time left was the way to the boss. This time it could be right, or it could lead me into an item. Like there is no linear path until you've explored enough.
I think my legacy is it's still a very, very strong franchise for Nintendo, but because we've had, I feel like more so than any other of the big three, I feel like Metroid has had the biggest discrepancy in quality across its games. And I think it's just because so many were handed out to other companies. I think that the four that R&D 1 does, which is the first three Metroids, Fusion, and maybe even Zero Mission. I think maybe those five were R&D 1, and everything else has been handed to other companies. And Other M is just not good. And the 3D or the DS Metroid was not fun. Metroid Prime 4, I played like 2 hours of it and just got unfathomably bored with it. I feel like sorry, Tony, but I feel like there's the biggest. Zelda was being given out to Capcom, but Capcom made some really great Zelda games with the Oracles and with Minish Cap. So Metroid is the least trusted of the three when you tell me that there is a new Nintendo Series game coming out. If you're telling me there's a new 3D Mario or 2D Mario or a new Legend of Zelda game, sign me up. I'm getting it unless the internet tells me that it's the worst thing ever. With Metroid, I'm more of a wait and see these days. What do
Yeah,
you
I
think
almost
about
blocked those games out of my mind. Yeah, I know I said before there's a lot of bangers, but you're right. There is Metroid Hunters. There is Metroid Pinball, and
Metroid Prime
almost like I
Pinball?
really just forgot they existed.
Yeah, Other M, and then I didn't. Metroid Prime 2 was kind of fun for me. I didn't really. I thought 3 would be so perfect with the pointing of the Wiimote.
No.
3 didn't work for me that much. My hottest take was almost that, oof, this would have been killer. But the my hottest take was that Metroid might be better if the Prime series never existed.
Oh my god.
Because the
Yeah, I don't
first
know about
one,
that one.
Yeah,
I know.
where's the
That was
end
too
button?
hot. Again, I'm trying to come in nuclear. Like I'm trying to come in like but yeah, like I just feel like it's the franchise I have the least trust in terms of the big three. Tony, legacy. I also feel Tony's personally insulted by like the last four things I've said. Got a little voodoo doll, me just poking it with a little.
It's just right in the heart. Ugh.
Yeah,
No, I think this game franchise, its legacy is that it built a genre. That is the legacy of the Metroid franchise. That it took a way to play games to a different area. Like every game that has that revolutionary start has something like Zelda was one of the first non-linear games out there that had save functions on it. It was like was not heard of that you would come back to a game and be where you left off. It was like you always just start Mario at the beginning of World 1. You don't get to start over where you left off. And it was then they added things with passwords and stuff to allow you to jump back into games. But this took a way to play a video game franchise or a video game as kids to a different area. It wasn't just exploration, and it wasn't like it made all of these new things. It took all of these great things from different games and melded them into a beautiful new genre. Like that exploration from Zelda, like your platforming from Mario, like your gunning, running and gunning from Mega Man. It took all of these different things and this fighting and moving around and world building and was like, okay, we're going to take these great shining pieces from these other games and meld them together. And sometimes when you do that, you get a game that just isn't fun. There isn't anything about it that you like. And it's like, well, it plays well and it's entertaining for a bit, but there's nothing fun about it. Whereas this kind of game was like every single piece that they took, they fit those puzzle pieces together beautifully to make Metroid. And to make Super Metroid, they took it to the next level and increased everything about the original franchise to set up what this genre should be. And that's kind of its legacy. That it took what it started with the original Metroid and even nods to it a little bit here and there in Super Metroid and says, like, this is the genre now. This is what we've set the bar for. If you can't meet this bar, you're not a part of this genre anymore.
makes sense. Tony, anything about Metroid, Super Metroid, anything we didn't cover, or any other last things you want to say about it?
Couple little things. I did have a mini hot take. I always found the power bombs useless. Those for me were door openers or find the hidden item in the room. That's all they were for. As soon as I got the power bombs, it was like, well, this scan thing is useless to me. I don't need to scan anything. I'm just going to set a power bomb off in the room and see what happens.
You're right. I never used a power bomb offensively or anything.
I actually one time in my recent playthrough was the first time I actually tried to use it, and it's against I forget his name, that little shrimp guy that floats across in the water and like grabs you at times, and he spits
Right.
those gray like spoogies at you. I would normally duck under them and shoot and try to like hide, and shoot them all. And this time I was like, I wonder if a power bomb would work. And I set a power bomb off. I'm like, oh, why didn't I think of that? I was like, because I don't think of power bombs as offensive weapons. They're just something that floods the screen with light. Maybe that's the only place that you get the slowdown though, is in a power bomb.
You definitely get slowed down on a
Yeah,
super power
that's the
bomb.
that's the part that the game can't handle. It's like
It's
there
like
had to be
as that
something.
circle gets bigger, like your game gets
Yeah,
slower. Yeah, yeah.
But it feels intentional almost. Maybe
yeah,
I'm not saying it was, but it
yeah.
does feel
It's
like
an artistic choice.
yeah.
It feels a bit cinematic.
And I gotta ask, did you save the Decora and the Edicons when
Okay.
you would
So
play, Alex?
if there is an afterlife, the person's going to sit there and they're going to have a book and they're going to open it. What are they called? The Eticunes?
The Edicoons, and I think it's the Cora. I wrote them down so I
They're
wouldn't.
going to look and see if you ever played a run through of Super Metroid where you didn't save the Eticunes. And if you ever left those poor things to explode or die, that's it. You're not getting into the that's it. That is the marker. I don't think I saved them the first time I ever played because I didn't know you could go down in
Yeah,
that starting area and go get them. Once I learned about it, you better believe I'm seeing that little ship come out the side
I
when
double
the
check
thing
every
explodes.
time. Look, where is it? Where is it?
Speaking of
Yeah,
Edicunes, I think that's the only time in a Metroid game I can remember that you ever meet a non-hostile character.
yes, I think it is. It's one of the few times where you have like an NPC that's a friendly in like a regular Metroid that like is there for you, but just kind of like hangs out and you can't hurt or do anything.
Yeah, you rarely ever meet something in a Metroid game that's not trying to hurt you. And those guys are just teaching you how to wall jump and they're being cute little green guys flying around. I even think the bird, ostrich looking thing, whatever it is, isn't he the one that teaches you the speed
Yeah,
boost
the
jump?
shine spark, whatever they call it.
What helpful animals. So yes, if yeah, I replay it and I save them every single.
Did you ever try to, when you find him, did you ever try to get him out of his little spot? Because he'll just do that endlessly. He'll just run over and smash into the ceiling. He never gets to break through. But if you time it right, you can break the ceiling with him, and he gets out, and he's just running around in the actual area. I did that
Instead
a
of him
few
just giving
times.
himself CTE the whole time, you
Yeah,
can get him out of there.
yeah. Then he could run around and try to do it in like the regular area. So then he's running around and then just smashes into the ceiling right in front of you every time. He just loves doing it.
Yeah,
So people love the jobs.
yeah. Anything else in the Metroid world that didn't come up for you, Tony?
I mean, I could talk about this for days. This franchise is like a core franchise for me.
I
Yeah,
have a
It's
question for
so
you.
much.
Would you say this is the most replayable of the Metroids?
I would say it probably is. I think it is a very good question. And I think it is because the Prime games, there's hours in those. I
Yeah,
know it's a Metroid game. You want to you want to try to beat it quick, but you just can't beat a Prime game, I think, in under 6 hours, like on a normal, without running
I
through it
don't think
endlessly
that's
until you can beat
possible.
it under 4. I think the best ending is 4 for that game, but still, that is a fast run. I don't remember what the limits on the best endings are for those, but I think even some of the Prime games, they stopped doing the timing and they just did percentage of items and things scanned. So it was like, as long as as long as you saw everything and got everything, that counted. But yeah, I mean, the original Metroid, you could replay it, but it is dragging for its age. It's slow. You don't have, and now that you have Super Metroid in the back pocket that you know is there, it's hard to replay it. I think you're right. I think this is the most replayable of all the Metroids, just from its accessibility and just its flow and how well you can play it, just how quickly you play it. I mean, case in point, I played it this weekend for fun and beat it.
George, anything we missed from Super Metroid or Metroid series as a whole?
I'm just happy they put it on the Switch Online. That was a great call.
The Super Nintendo controller is my favorite controller of all time. It's my absolute favorite. So I did buy the Super Nintendo controller for the Switch, and that's how I was playing Super Metroid last night. My goodness, does it just fit? It is just perfect on that.
So I got to ask, we didn't talk at all about this, the boss fights. What was your favorite one?
My favorite is Kraid, and that's 2 point. One, I love that it sets the tone for the scope of this game because you saw him in previous games and he was a much smaller guy, or he just comes up out of the floor at the end of Brinstar, and he's this
And that
massive
music.
being, and he's like, once you learn his pattern, he's pretty easily conquerable. Ridley just feels like chaos to me. Half the time, I don't know what Ridley is doing in that
Yeah.
game.
Right.
It's still the coolest. Seeing Ridley fly out and then fly in towards you those times is epic. Kraid's my guy.
I got to go with the final fight, the mother brain at the end where you get saved and then just are juiced on
That's
Metroid juice.
yeah,
It, it's just so cool. It's such a great way to end it.
agreed. Tony, what's your favorite?
So I always forget, I forget his name. It's the claw one in the lava level with he's got the giant claws and he's raking at you and you're
Yeah, yeah,
fighting him.
yeah.
And the first time you fight him, the reason I love it is because the first time you fight
The
him, it's
bones and
not
the
like, yeah, there's bones in the background. There's just chaos and you're in a long hallway and there's nowhere for you to go but fight this thing. Like you try to run away, you can't, and you're fighting it. And no matter what you do, you can't damage it and you can't fight him. And so normally in a Metroid game, it's just shoot him, just keep shooting and you win. And that's how you win. Just survive and shoot. It's like, well, he doesn't do anything fancy. He just kind of claws it, but you by the second or third time you've died, you start to be like, whatever I'm doing isn't right. And then you'll notice, hey, he's backing up every time I shoot him in this one spot. If I hit him in the face, he backs up a little bit. So if I hit him with some missiles, he'll back up. And then you start to realize if you keep doing this, eventually he backs up and there's like, oh, there's lava there underneath him. And if you hit him again, it boils him alive if he falls into it. I thought that was such a cool change of pace because every single one of the boss fights is different about its mechanic of how to beat them and how to fight them. It's not the same thing as like just hide in a corner and shoot or just be this. Every one of the bosses and mini bosses is a completely different fight. And that was one of the cool mechanics to me that was, while it's not a very interesting boss, and now that I know the mechanic, I can beat him in seconds and like just race at him and smash him in the face with missiles. But the first time I played him, I remember being like, what do I do here? And it's just blowing my mind to have a boss that you can't actually kill. You have to trick them into their own demise.
I also love the way that Super Metroid uses verticality. If you think about A Link to the Past, we played that a couple months ago. Every boss fight just in a box, in a
Mhm.
square. Maybe they do little mechanics, but basically every boss fight feels the same room size, same everything. Gets a little bit better. A Link Between Worlds was able to vary it up a little bit more. But for Super Metroid, every boss felt so different. It's what makes the areas feel so varied, and the boss fights are so varied. And there's different ways to do it. You're either pushing a boss back, you're climbing up on Kraid's claws he sends out, or for Ridley, you're trying to morph ball under the tail and then jump over the top of her. It's so original, and I love it. George, remind me, is there anything like that? Like when we get to Prime, how are the boss fights in Prime?
I think they definitely encourage you to use what you've just picked up in Prime.
Yeah.
Like it's kind of like, what's the newest gimmick?
Okay. Do they
I mean,
feel
most like,
significantly different though?
There's a couple good ones in my opinion. Otherwise,
but
they're
I don't
very
think,
similar.
yeah, I don't
Shoot the
think that.
glowing orb.
Yeah, it's basically that. You know, that's that generation's gameplay. It's find the glowy part, shoot it. And with I think with their gimmick with Prime was, oh, scan it first so you could
Yes, and
see
it'll
the glowy
tell you
part
the glowy part.
because we made a visor.
Reading that novel, it's a female author that wrote the book, and she talks about what it was like to have Samus Aran as this heroine. And it's funny because it's a throwaway thing, right? Like they just thought it'd be cool to have her as a woman. It wasn't like we're going to redefine things. It was like, oh, this is a cool, neat trick. But before that, like the author speaks about how it was always just damsel in distress, or in later games, women had to be there for eye candy. No person you played with in Final Fantasy was not strikingly beautiful once we got to computer generated stuff. But for Samus to be ahead of her time and for her to be someone that young female gamers could look up to, It's so incredible, and now you get, like, the different varieties of Samus in the Smash Brothers games, and they've definitely tried to accentuate it more. Did it age the best that you got her in a bikini if you beat it under a certain time? No, but it was a
No,
small price to pay. When you first beat Metroid, Tony, did you know that Samus Aran was a woman, or was that a complete surprise for you?
No, that was a total surprise the first time we beat it. It's like, oh my god, this person's a girl. We just thought Samus was a space name. It was totally new because again, you had your Mario's, your Zeldas, you always had a male protagonist. And anytime there was a girl character in games, it was like clearly like, look at this pink, light, fluffy girl character who's appealing to that much very feminine or girly style. And there's like, and then you got your tough boy blue characters over here, and that's how we can tell them apart. And it's like, this was like, you're playing the whole time and you're like, man, this person's such a badass. Or it's like, this guy's a badass. And you get to the end, you're like, wait a minute, I was playing as a girl the whole time. I didn't even think about that. Like they didn't play it up as basically her sexuality didn't define her. She was a bounty hunter and a badass the whole time. And that was what was kind of groundbreaking breaking at the time. It was amazing.
yeah, and they did a good job of maintaining that. Again, Other M doesn't exist. Where she's just a badass bounty hunter. That's it. You don't need to justify anything. Like,
She's
Yeah.
totally
this character's
Ripley.
great, and that's all you need to know.
Yeah, she's totally Alien, she's totally Ripley, she's totally Sigourney Weaver, and it works. Because the same way that Alien respects Sigourney Weaver's character, Metroid has never stopped respecting Samus Aran. George, was the first time you ever played as Samus in Smash Brothers?
Ooh. Yeah. Yeah. Because
And
she wasn't a guest than anything else, really, right?
I don't think she's ever been in
No.
like a Mario Tennis or a
No.
Mario Golf. I think
No.
Absolutely not.
Or Mario Kart,
she's never
or
been
Diddy
in.
Kong Racing.
That's so.
Man.
Yeah, you're right. She has really not been utilized in anything but Smash.
She's a very isolated bounty hunter. She doesn't like to join other people's stuff.
Does she have a cameo in Mario RPG? That's possible.
She might be in a picture.
Yeah, maybe there's like a bounty hunter picture or something.
Yeah,
but
maybe. I don't remember.
so you knew you knew she was female before you ever played a Metroid game. Like
Yeah,
a
I think I
traditional Metroid
knew.
game.
I think it's something that was just in the zeitgeist at that point. So when I played Prime, it was no surprise, and it didn't even matter to me one way or the other. But I recognize, knowing, playing all the games I've had, I recognize how groundbreaking that was. Because it took what, 20 years after Super Metroid before you actually just had female characters that were just characters instead of, oh, Lara Croft has quadruple Ds. That's why you like her. Like, really? Was that what we're doing here?
It was like the Resident Evil games where Jill Valentine kicked ass and Claire was cool in too. I think that's the
Yes.
first time that I can remember. Because like, yes, Aerith and Renoa and all those characters, but they were like a mix, like Quistis from Final Fantasy VIII. He fits a very specific archetype for young male gamers. But like,
Freya in Final Fantasy IX.
yeah, exactly. It was so cool that young female gamers had a heroine that they could look up to. Link is always saving Princess Zelda. Mario's always saving Princess Peach. But here, Samus is actually saving the world herself. Another thing that I wanted to mention is I think the height of my intelligence, the smartest I've ever felt in my entire life, was figuring out that I could power bomb the glass tube to get to Meridia. I figured that out by myself, and
Oh my
not even
God.
graduating college is as much of an accomplishment to
Yeah, I
me
was gonna say,
as
you should have
figuring that out
framed on the
myself.
wall.
What'd you say?
You should have that framed on a wall. I did this without a guide and have just a picture of that broken glass cracking.
Yeah. Instead of having my diplomas behind me, I should just have that like broken glass cylinder.
Put that on your resume as the next time you play
Be
up.
my LinkedIn cover photo. It speaks about the game design where my little 94, my little 8-year-old brain says, there's a glass tube here. I just got this big booming slowdown thing. Let me try it here. And when it pops open, I'm just like, Mom, I'm a genius. It was great. Did you figure that out yourself, Tony and George? Did you guys, or
think I
had you
did.
seen the game played before?
I think I read about like they said like, oh, yeah, it was really good game design because they show you a similar glass tube that's already broken in a different area to say like, oh look, it can break. You should try something over here. But I never really thought about it much, and I think I saw something that said like, oh yeah, you power bomb it. It's like, well, that makes sense. Yeah.
I definitely didn't figure it out.
You definitely didn't figure it out?
No, there's no way I did.
Well, at least you're honest. As we start wrapping up here, it's so funny that Metroid is looked at as Nintendo's black sheep. And I don't mean that in a bad way, but it's so different. And there's always been the rumors that Miyamoto does not like the Metroid games. I don't know why. And for R&D 1, which like so R&D 4 was the main software group that was led by Miyamoto, and they made Mario, and according to this book they said make something that competes with that little jumping plumber. R&D 1 and 4 in the Nintendo hierarchy were always competing with each other, and they come up with Metroid, and it's off to the races. Super Metroid came at such a crucial point where you get back to back Link to the Past and Super Metroid, and you now associate Nintendo with top-notch game making. I feel like, especially in the console wars, those two come out back to back, and that's it. Like, no matter how much attitude Genesis has, no matter how much blood Mortal Kombat has, you associate Nintendo with quality game making. To the bonus level, you can either choose as your final gift to the listeners and the viewers either something great that you've played or want to recommend or haven't even played recently, just something you want to recommend in general. I'm going to fight for a Metroid game. You could do either one. George, we'll get started with you.
I have been replaying Bastion, and if you haven't played it, it's a great Xbox 360, Xbox One era. Another quick game that you could replay. You know what, that 4 to 6 hour mark. I think there's a lot to be said for that. If you haven't played it, I think you should.
Okay, Tony, bonus level.
I will say, after hearing us gush about this game for however long this episode will end up being, I'm sure we're going to have to cut it down. This has been too much gushing.
Not enough.
What I would recommend is play this game if you can, Super Metroid, and then take that into Metroid, play Metroid Dread. It's a wonderful first step into the franchise, and Metroid Dread takes everything about Super Metroid, in my opinion, to the next level and brings it into the modern gaming era. So if you're going to play a Metroid game, start with Super Metroid, get through it, play, even if you don't finish it, play through it, try to get through a boss or two, beat Kraid, get to feel some of the worlds, some of the items, and then jump into Metroid Dread if you want to play a little more modern game.
I am going to fight for the two. More people than I thought have never played Fusion or Zero Mission, including one person that we're currently doing a podcast with. They are now available on Switch Online. They are extremely short games. I have beaten Metroid Fusion in one sitting before. Metroid Zero Mission might take you two. I gotta say, I just finished replaying Zero Mission this past weekend, and other than the Metal Gear Samus part of the game, it is just absolutely outstanding. And if you've never played either Game Boy Advance Metroid, I think Fusion's the second best game in the series. I love Prime 1. I played the remake when it came out. I love it. It's in my top 4 of Metroids, but I'd put Fusion at number 2. I think it's outstanding. Tony,
I eventually want to play them all. I will get there.
okay. You let me know when you do Fusion. We'll be back
Yeah.
talking about it. Because
Yes, Fusion is a great game. It's
Tony,
a totally new one.
Tony, what's your number 2 behind Super Metroid?
I would have said Prime for a long time. Prime blew my mind as like a young teenager. It was so fun because it was taking it into the 3D world, and I just seen what they did with Ocarina of Time and Mario in the 64, Majora's Mask, and then they're showing Prime, and the graphics were amazing. The worlds were amazing, and it was almost like replaying. For me, it felt like I'm getting to play a Metroid game for the first time again when I was a kid playing Metroid 1 and finding this new game. And it was like, this is a new Metroid to me. So it's like the Metroid that I love, but completely different and new with that backbone of what Metroid was. So that's probably my second one, just because of how much it brought back that feeling of playing it as a little kid again. And up until recently, that would have been my dead second. And my third has now become easily Dread, is very close to that second spot. It's just going back and playing it again. I've been really liking it.
Yeah.
It's just so tight and so good of a game for a 2D Metroid.
Dread was really excellent. The last couple of 2Ds, the remake on 3DS of Metroid 2, Dread. I'm going to take back what I said. If I hear that a 2D Metroid is coming out, I'm all in day one. I think my reticence with the series comes with where three-dimensional Metroid has gone.
I could see that.
The only reason Prime 2 doesn't stand out to me as much is because Prime 1 is such a masterpiece. I just wanted something on par with Prime 1 again. It's so good. Well, this is our longest episode ever, almost 2 hours on Super Metroid. I want to thank both of you for joining me for this. This was a really special episode for me because this goes back and forth with Link to the Past as my favorite game of all time. Talk to me one week and it's one, and talk to me the next week and it's the other. It might be recency bias, I don't know, but Super Metroid, when I truly fell in love with video games. We will see you guys next week for a new episode of the Replayables. Again, George, Tony, thank you very much. You can now take off your various suits. The hot takes are done. Take care of yourselves. See you guys next time.
See?
Thank you.